So, George, there are already 4,500 U.S. troops stationed in Poland. This new deal will bring an additional 1,000. With the fall of the INF, George, how do you read this new addition of U.S. troops just 1,200 kilometers from Moscow?
Well, it's a very dangerous development, together with one that we have already discussed, which is in Poland and Romania. We now have the launch pads for and the missiles in place for the weapons that were previously banned under the INF, in other words, short and medium range nuclear weapons. This is an arms race. It's a further encroachment on Russia, which was promised in the time of the Soviet Union that NATO would not crowd the borders of Russia in exchange for the knocking down of the Berlin Wall, the ending of the Cold War, and then the collapse of the Soviet Union itself. All these promises were made by President Reagan, and they have all now been ripped up and abandoned. And 1,200 kilometers, of course, in missile flying time is absolutely nothing. It's not even very much in terms of armored personnel, tanks, and so on. It's a very dangerous situation. And yet, the Western media continues to portray Russia as some kind of aggressive power, when in fact it's the West that is encircling, laying siege to Russia and Russia's borders. So I view this development with a great deal of foreboding. I think it's a dangerous time, and people better wake up, because I get the sense that we are sleepwalking to a new crisis here. I hear no one talking about the INF, the ripping up of the treaty, and now cruise missiles being sighted on the European continent, in the European heartland. Nothing could be more dangerous for us in Europe than that.
And George, speaking of NATO, we know that President Trump has often criticized NATO, of which Poland is a member state. He stumped on the idea that NATO was obsolete. Now, this move, though, seems to be in direct opposition of that. Meanwhile, many of those member states are also EU members, George. How do you see a no-deal Brexit possibly even shaking up NATO?
Well, not the only thing, of course, that President Trump is doing the opposite of what he stumped on. There are many such things. Resetting relations with Russia has become almost endless confrontation with Russia. Many campaign promises have been broken by President Trump, but this is one of the most difficult to understand, because he was right in every particular when he said that NATO was obsolete. NATO was set up to confront a different social and political and economic system in the former Soviet Union and its allies, which no longer exists. NATO has no purpose. That's why it goes around the globe looking for places to make war on, which are very far from NATO, which stands for the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. Colombia is in NATO. Brazil is a candidate member to join NATO. This is absurd.